Oregon minus 9.5 against Washington. 8 Eastern ABC in Vegas. It's fitting we got a title fight going on in Las Vegas against these two teams where a lot of big UFC fights and boxing matches happen. Like, this is going to be a great one. Again, this is a Friday night game. So to give you a little bit of juice to get your college football conference title weekend started, Oregon and Washington are going to get us rolling in a very, very real way, I promise you. Because the first time we saw this game, Washington won by 3. Right now, it's Oregon minus 9.5. The spread opened at 7.5. It's climbed 2 points. I don't know what Vegas knows, but we're going to give you our pick in this one. For Oregon, this is a crazy college football playoff bargaining chip. Because at the end of this whole thing, if Oregon wins, every argument you would make against the Ducks at that point is hypothetical. Because they've avenged their only loss if they beat Washington. So there's nobody you're looking at on the schedule and saying, well, yes, but they lost to this team. Well, the eye test with this team. Yes, they lost to Washington, but the last thing you get to see of Oregon is them beating the team that beat them early in the year. So again, every hypothetical around Oregon is, well, how do they match up with, this team, or what would they do in this spot? Or it's all on paper. Everything that happened on the field, Oregon took care of. I think you would like to live in that world if you're Oregon, obviously. Now for Washington, this game, believe it or not, has magical properties for the Huskies. A win in this game would unlock something magical called shut up juice. Meaning, everybody who had anything to say about Washington, who thought they weren't that good, who thought they didn't deserve to be in the college football playoff, magically, everybody would just be silent. And I'll include myself in that category because I've said multiple weeks in a row now, hey, Washington, this thing makes me nervous about the defense. Hey, this makes me nervous about how close it was against Arizona State or how close it was against Washington State. If they beat Oregon for the second time, won't hear a peep out of me for a minute. So this is the opportunity now for Washington to just kind of bring the gavel down, silence everybody, and very clearly lock up their college football playoff spot if they're an undefeated Pac-12 champ. Big question I have for this one, man. Who sets the pace in this game? Because both these offenses are so explosive. Clearly with both teams scoring in the 30s last time they met up. Does Oregon start fast? I think is probably the more crucial question I have. Because we saw Washington set the pace last game. And Oregon, not that they weren't still scoring points early in this one, but it just had a feeling more of Washington made them earn it. You saw a lot of third and second and long where they were kind of just having to find creative ways to pick up yards. Oregon's going to attack the perimeter and then go vertical. We've seen that all year long from the Ducks. That's who they are. They're going to run some outside runs. They're going to try and do the quick game out to Troy Franklin. They're going to get the ball out to Tez on the perimeter. Like, they're going to attack the edge of your defense, get you rocking and rolling, and then they're going to go north and south. That's who they are. It's what they've been. Bo Nix runs that thing like a well-oiled machine. That's who they are. Now for Washington, defensively, I would expect them to stay true to who they are, which is aggressive, especially at that linebacker position. They are quick on the trigger. They get north and south on you quick, fast, and in a hurry. Like that defense, I think, will try and create some turnovers by getting after that ball in the backfield. No duh. But whatever I think is, I think the key thing to watch here, who gets that first stop? Who gets that first stop? Who's able to play with the lead? Because it felt like the majority of the last game, it was Oregon chasing Washington. That's what it felt like, obviously, until the end there where Washington put it away. Physical battle on the perimeter is also important here against Washington's wide receivers. We've said it multiple times whenever you break down a Washington game. Those receivers, man, they are the Monstars. Rome Odunze, I mean, he may be the best wide receiver in the country. Keon Coleman's in that conversation. Marvin Harrison Jr. is in that conversation. That should tell you how highly we think of Rome Odunze on this show. He might be the very best in the country. He's going to make a lot of money in the NFL. The thing for Oregon now, when it comes to that physical battle, can't be that free release. It's got to be a lot of, I think, getting hands-on within 1 to 3 yards, being able to kind of disrupt their timing of their routes. Because the way that Washington plays, they spread you out so far to the sideline to where that safety just physically can't get over to play the top. So you have to just hold on for dear life and manage that matchup. Whether it's Rome Odunze, whether it's Jalen Polk, like whoever it ends up being, you got to be able to just manage that matchup. Because, to keep it a buck, like if you get gashed, you lose. You lose. Like they have eraser plays is what Washington has, meaning they could be down a score, they could be having trouble offensively for the majority of the game, but if they hit one of those eraser plays, those we win our one-on-one matchup, your safety can't get over, deep shot to Rome Odunze on 3rd and 13, let's call it, touchdown. Everything that we did poorly in this game, eraser. That's what it would be. So expect Oregon to be physical and try and, again, disrupt that timing. If they can manage it, give your offense a chance to kind of keep pace and try and get some stops. Really important now, too. We said this in the Oregon State game. The same thing is true for Oregon in this game against Washington. When Washington spreads you out, the tendency for teams is to have everybody drop out and play coverage. Like those linebackers, they start dropping to 10 yards. They start dropping back into their zone. The safeties, they try and keep a lid on the defense. Don't get beat deep. Like you get into that thought process. And then Michael Penix Jr. just says, oh, sweet. Nice little throw underneath to Dylan Johnson. Nice little drop-off pass to our tight end. And then that's where they pick up, before you knew it, a quick 7 yards. We're living in 2nd and 3. It's 2nd and 4, and we're picking up 9, first down. Like that's the kind of just dink and dunk. It feels minimal, but then you look at how many yards they gained, and you're like, hey, that was almost an explosive play with a check down. Because we're playing so conservative defensively. It's going to be really important for these Oregon linebackers now to rally up, tackle in space, and you can drop in coverage to a degree, but I would really trust my defensive backs if I'm Dan Lanning and if I'm Tosh Lupoi. I think that has to be their approach here, is trust your guys in the back end, play physical, be disruptive, rally up in space, and don't let a 9-yard check down be the way that you get beat. You can let them check it down. Let's keep it to 4. Keep it to 5 at the most. Like that has to be, I think, the situation you live in if you're Oregon. So in a game like this, it's round 2. Both these teams have pretty clear tape on what they're going to see or what you would expect to see. Who can adjust the best? And defensively, I think is where I have the biggest questions for both these teams, because Oregon in their pass defense, I said you can't get gashed. They got gashed last time. Allowed for 300 yards, 302 yards to be exact, and 4 touchdowns. Got the 1 pick, but still, that's not winning football. It wasn't winning football last time. It will not be winning football again this time. Now, Washington, they allowed 200 yards rushing. And it felt like, to me, Washington, as well as they played offensively, they had those eraser plays that were enough to get them over the top there, but it felt like they were kind of fortunate to win that game in Seattle. Are you able to kind of minimize the rushing attack of Oregon? Because if they can run the football, everything else opens up. We talk about eraser plays for Washington. If Oregon gets rhythm, it's going to be a long day at the office for the Huskies. And you're not in Seattle this time. So there's no crowd kind of feeding into this whole thing that I thought was an advantage for them the last time they met up. So who's our pick in this one? I'll say this. It is very difficult to beat anybody twice, much less a team like Oregon. And Oregon, they were really good last time they played Washington. I thought Oregon would win the game last time, and I was wrong. I don't think this is the same Oregon team we saw in Seattle. Every single week, Oregon seems to get better, and the spot does not affect them. Whether it's supposed to be a letdown, whether it's supposed to be a look ahead, they just keep on handling business and playing their best football when it matters the most. So I think Oregon wins this game. Y'all, that spread is big, 9.5. I'm taking Oregon in cover. I think we see a lot of points. I think Oregon wins this game 41-31. And for Oregon, I would have a very difficult time leaving them out of the playoff. I understand there's stuff going on with Bama and stuff to go on with Texas, but again, if you're Oregon and you win this game, every conversation you want to have about your objections to Oregon, you go back to the loss against Washington as probably your key point, and then that point gets thrown out the window, in my opinion, by nature of beating that same team that beats you at a neutral site, especially if they do it in convincing fashion. So that'll set the table for our conference championship weekend. But again, we like Oregon to win, like them to cover. They're playing some of the best football in the country. And at that point, I don't know if there's a ton more to be argued with if they avenge that one loss. A Hard Count brought to you by our friends at Rowback. And y'all that have tuned in to my Instagram stories or that saw segment we did with Andy Staples, like y'all know I love Rowback, and there's a reason for that. One, look good. All right, I love the way that it looks. It's comfortable without being like sort of unkept, if you will, like some of these athleisure companies are. Wear them all the time for a reason. They have the best polos on the market, best hoodies on the market. You can last the entire day on a hot game day in the same polo. It's breathable, great moisture-wicking fabric. Four-way stretch makes it easy to move in while keeping you feeling fresh, and that's across the board from performance crews to polos to T-shirts. Whatever you want to get done, Rhoback has got an article of clothing for that. All right, so Rhoback has also been proudly leading the charge in NIL. They've signed partnerships with guys like Cade Klubnik, Kyle McCord, Nick Singleton, Jalen Milroe. Huge game in Atlanta. We'll see him in person this week. They've also teamed up with the legendary Coach O. So use code JD on Rhoback.com for a generous 20% off for all new customers through the end of this week. Okay? Through the end of this week. So lock in. May be here next week. It may not. But I wouldn't risk it if I were you. That's spelled RHOBACK.com. That's 20% off all performance polos, shorts, joggers, fleece. Like I'm telling you, whatever you need for crispy, frosty windshield season, Rhoback's got you covered. So, just in time now for Conference Championship Week. Get dialed in with Rhoback. Check them out at Rhoback.com. We appreciate them making that happen. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.